You're a burden, not a blessing. Do us a favor, stay away this Christmas. My name is Emily Walker, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Has your family ever thanked you with silence and then discarded you with a sentence? That text didn't feel like rejection. It felt like erasure. I was standing in the tiny kitchen of my one-bedroom apartment, folding laundry after a 12-hour hospital shift. My fingers were still raw from pulling off latex gloves when the message lit up my screen. It was from my father, the same man I once thought would walk me down the aisle. The man who used to call me his little compass because I always knew where I was going, even when the world didn't. And now I was just a burden. I stared at the words, blinked, waited for a follow-up, some kind of punchline. Nothing. Just those 12 words. No love, Dad. No punctuation. No apology. Outside, snow was falling in sheets. I'd just finished packing my bag. Flight was booked. A Christmas surprise. After 5 years of working through the holidays, I was finally coming home. And not just for turkey or carols. I wanted to see the house again. The house I saved. But I'll get to that. I sat down slowly on the edge of my bed. The room around me was quiet, but the silence felt heavier than any siren I'd heard in the ER. I didn't cry. Not right away. You don't cry when you've been gut-punched. You sit there, dazed, wondering what you did wrong. Then I opened my email. Canceled the flight. I went to the living room. Unplugged the string lights. Took the wrapped gifts and placed them gently in the closet, like they were breakable memories I didn't want to see again. And then, I replied. Just one word. Understood. That's all I wrote. I didn't curse them out. I didn't beg for space at the table. I didn't ask why. Because I already knew the answer. The moment I stopped being useful, I stopped being welcome. You see, 5 years ago, I found out they were losing the house. My childhood home. The one with creaky steps and chipped paint and the attic we used to camp in during summer storms was about to be taken. So I paid the mortgage. Quietly. Not once. Not twice. But every month. For 5 straight years. While they posted family dinners on Facebook. Without me. And this year, when things were finally okay, when there were no more overdue notices, no more panicked calls, I thought maybe it was my turn. Maybe now, I could come home not as the nurse with the credit card, but as the daughter. Instead, I got that message. You're a burden. Not a blessing. Stay away. I didn't respond after that. Didn't post about it. Didn't call my brother or cry to a friend. I just got still. And in that stillness, something inside me changed. Because when you've been breaking your back to keep people warm and they tell you to stand outside in the cold, you stop knocking. You let the silence speak. And 5 days later, I didn't send a card. I didn't raise my voice. But what I did next shocked everyone. People think betrayal always comes with shouting, slamming doors, or ugly fights. But sometimes, it slips in through the back door with a smile, wearing your mother's perfume. See, this wasn't the first time they pushed me aside. It was just the first time they didn't bother to dress it up. 5 years. That's how long I stayed away for Christmas. Not because I wanted to, but because every year there was a new reason why I shouldn't come. First year it was, Emily, the roads are bad. We'll do a big Easter instead. Second year, maybe you can work a holiday shift? Get that holiday bonus. Third year, they didn't even ask if I was coming. I saw their Christmas photos on Facebook. Matching pajamas. Hot cocoa. My brother, Noah, wearing the sweater I sent him, with the tag still on. Fourth year, I sent gifts and got a thank you text from my mom. You always know how to spoil us. Love you. I believed that meant I mattered. And the fifth year, that was the year I stopped getting invited. But I still sent money. Still paid the mortgage. Still answered every, hey, could you help us with just one more thing? That house, the one they decorated in lights and wreaths, should have been in foreclosure. They didn't know I'd seen the bank's letter tucked behind a drawer. Didn't know I took the mortgage into my name under an assumption clause just to stop them from losing it. Didn't know I worked double shifts, drank stale coffee, and skipped meals just so I could wire home $1,142 every month. They kept saying they'd pay me back. They never did. Not even once. But I wasn't keeping score. I told myself this was family. And family? You show up. Even when you're tired. Even when they forget to say thank you. Even when they forget you. So this year, when the hospital finally approved my leave, and I had no rent debt, no backlogs, no emergencies, I booked a flight. A real one. Not a dream. Not a maybe. I even bought gifts. Not expensive ones, but personal. Thoughtful. I found an old photograph of my dad holding me in front of the fireplace, aged 3, and had it framed in oak. I wrapped it in gold paper, tied a red ribbon around it, wrote to Dad, "From your blessing." The irony stings now. I remember pacing that night thinking, will they be surprised? Happy? Maybe even a little proud? But they weren't anything. They were cruel. That message? It wasn't a moment of anger. It was who they really were, unfiltered. You're a burden, not a blessing. Do us a favor, stay away this Christmas. I didn't ask them to explain it, because sometimes when someone shows you who they are, the worst thing you can do is ask them to repeat it. So I said nothing. I unpacked my suitcase, one shirt at a time, took off my coat like I had nowhere to be because I didn't, ate cereal in the dark, watched the snow fall like an outsider peeking through a window. I wasn't sad anymore. I was humiliated. And you know what they say about humiliation? It has two options: shrink you or sharpen you. That night, something inside me chose the second. The day after that message, I went silent. Not just on the outside, but inside, too. Like someone had hit mute on everything I thought I was. It's hard to explain what that kind of hurt feels like. It's not loud. It's not sharp. It's quiet, like being forgotten in a room you helped build. I didn't cry. I didn't text anyone. I just sat on the couch with a mug of tea that had gone cold twice. Blanket around me. Lights off. Just listening. Not to music. Not to the outside. To my own thoughts. And they were crueler than my father's message. I started hearing old echoes in my head. Mom saying, "You always take things so personally." Noah laughing, "And so dramatic. Always making something a big deal." And suddenly, I realized something. They never loved me. Not really. They loved what I did for them. They loved the money, the stability, the fact that when things went wrong, they had someone to blame and someone to fix it. But me? The person? The daughter? The human being? I was invisible unless I was useful. I thought about the phone calls over the past 5 years. Mom calling me her little lifesaver, right before asking if I could cover her dental bill. Dad saying, "You're the strong one, Em. We're proud of you," only when I sent another payment to keep the lights on. Even Noah. He'd call just to ask if I could help with tuition. Or a new laptop. Or just a bit until payday. And I said yes. Every single time. Because I thought if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. Turns out, I was just a wallet with a pulse. I replayed the last time I was home. 2 years ago. Noah had a girlfriend over. Mom had made roast chicken. They all laughed at the table, while I cleaned up dishes alone. Dad clapped me on the back and said, "Look at you, helping out. You're good at that." Helping out. Like I was the hired help. Not the reason the roof hadn't collapsed. That memory burned through me now. I wasn't just hurt. I was insulted. I checked the deed to the house, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. My name was there. Emily Walker. Sole owner. Not a cosigner. Not a partial contributor. Owner. Because 5 years ago, when the bank came knocking, I had the documents revised, added my name, absorbed the risk, paid the back payments, and kept their home standing. They never asked. And I never bragged. Because I thought that's what love does. It covers. It protects. It doesn't need recognition. But now I see it for what it really was. They let me save them so they wouldn't have to change. They let me burn my 20s for their second chances. And then told me I was too much. Too emotional. Too clingy. Too inconvenient. No. Not this time. Something in me snapped, but not in anger. In clarity. I didn't send an angry message. I didn't block them or blast them online. I simply made a decision. If they only love the hand that feeds, then it's time I stop feeding. And let them see what happens when the hand pulls away. I didn't plot revenge out of rage. Rage burns fast. But betrayal? Betrayal chills your bones and teaches you patience. So I didn't scream. I didn't post cryptic quotes or tear up the gifts I'd wrapped. Instead, I got quiet. Not the kind of quiet that means giving up, the kind of quiet that builds plans. That morning, while the world was still hungover from Christmas cheer, I brewed a pot of black coffee and opened my laptop. I pulled up every document, every contract, every receipt I'd buried away out of love or maybe stupidity. Mortgage statements, wire transfers, property tax notices. All in my name. All proof. You see, when I took over the mortgage 5 years ago, I didn't just help. I became legally responsible for the house. I signed an assumption agreement with the bank that granted me full authority over the property. If they wanted to keep it, they were supposed to reimburse me within 3 years. They didn't. They never asked. Because they thought I'd never claim it.
So I did.
Not to sell it.
No.
I wasn't going to make money off their downfall. I was going to give it away. To someone who would know its worth. I reached out to a nonprofit I used to volunteer with, an organization that helps displaced families, especially single moms and veterans, get permanent housing. I explained the situation. Sent over documents. Made it clear. The house was mine, free and legal, and I wanted to donate it. They asked, "Are you sure? People don't usually do this." I said, I wasn't raised to believe in taking things back. But I was also never taught to stop giving when I've been robbed. They understood. Within 48 hours, I had the paperwork. By the third day, we'd found a recipient, a single mother of 2 girls who'd been sleeping in her car since October.
She was a nurse too.
She cried on the phone when I told her, "You're giving me a home?" "No," I said. "I'm returning it to someone who understands sacrifice." I didn't tell her the backstory. She didn't need to know about my parents. She didn't need to know they were still inside the house for now. The final handover would take place in 2 days, New Year's Eve. I arranged for a letter to be delivered that morning. 1 envelope. No emotion. Just facts. The house has been transferred. New ownership takes effect January 1st. Legal documents attached. E. Walker. It felt surgical. Precise. Not petty. Not dramatic.
Just done.
And when I signed the last document, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel power. I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Control.
I wasn't the backup plan anymore. I wasn't the emotional punching bag or invisible servant. I was the one writing the final page of a story they never imagined I'd walk away from. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not a friend. Not a coworker. Because some moves don't need applause. They just need to land. And this one was about to echo. The letter was delivered at 9:02 a.m. on December 31st. The same front door I once dreamed of walking through on Christmas morning now held the truth taped to it, beneath a bold header. Notice of ownership transfer. I wasn't there to see their faces. But I imagine my mother's hands shaking as she opened the envelope. My father's confusion turning into disbelief. And Noah, my golden brother, probably pacing the kitchen saying, "What the hell is this?" The voicemail started 10 minutes later. At first, they were confused. "Emily, call us. We just got something weird. This has to be a mistake." Then, panic. What did you do? This is serious. You can't just take a house from your own parents." Then fury. "I don't know who you think you are, but you better fix this before it becomes something ugly." I didn't respond. Not to the 37 missed calls. Not to the flurry of messages ranging from guilt trips to outright threats. I watched them all come in. Watched the words shift from disbelief to blame to desperation. And I stayed still. Because sometimes silence is the most violent answer. By noon, my brother sent a voice message, trying to sound calm. "Emily, look, you're being emotional. You've always had a big heart, but this isn't you. Be the bigger person. Let's talk. Be the bigger person." I nearly laughed. I'd been the bigger person every year I paid that mortgage. Every birthday I spent alone. Every time I swallowed my sadness so they could keep pretending their lives were fine. Now, I was just being fair. They never once thought to ask, what if Emily stops helping? Because they never imagined I had boundaries. They thought I was built to absorb damage. They were wrong. At 3:17 p.m., my father finally called from a number I didn't recognize. The voicemail was short, cold. You're going to regret this, Emily. We gave you everything. This is how you thank us. That word again. Everything. They really believed that. Believed that raising a child and not abandoning her was some debt I owed them forever. But parenting isn't a loan. It's a promise. And they broke at the moment they told me I was unworthy of coming home. At 6 p.m., I turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine, sat by my tiny window, and watched the snow fall in slow spirals over the streetlights. Somewhere in that house, my parents were packing, or fighting, or sitting in disbelief. And I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about release. They used me, dismissed me, and when I stopped giving, they discarded me like expired medicine. So I gave them exactly what they asked for. Distance. Permanent, legal, irreversible distance. The new family was set to move in by noon the next day. A woman named Danielle. 2 daughters. I'd never met them in person, only through video calls. But when she cried and said, "This is going to save us," I knew everything had happened exactly the way it needed to. Because some people inherit homes. Others inherit heartbreak and turn it into shelter for someone else. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt like I had come home, not to them, but to myself. By January 2nd, the story had gone viral. Not on social media, not at first, but within my family, cousins, aunts, old neighbors. Even my high school math teacher, Mr. Jennings, texted, "Heard some things. You okay?" My parents didn't just fall. They spun their own fall into a new story, a twisted version that made me the villain. She stole our home. She forged documents. She's always been unstable, always needed attention. And just like that, the same people who once called me the responsible one, the sweet one, the nurse with a heart of gold, started whispering, started asking questions. Because liars don't just lie. They recruit. My mother posted a photo on Facebook of her and my father sitting on folding chairs in a half-packed rental, captioned, "When your daughter forgets who raised her." Hundreds of comments. Crying emojis. Prayers. Disgust. One read, "How could anyone do this to their own parents?" I didn't respond. Not yet. Because I knew how this works. The one who shouts first controls the narrative. But only for a while. 3 days later, I emailed one single person, my Aunt Caroline. She was my mom's younger sister. The one who used to sneak me extra cookies when I was grounded. The one who always knew, somehow, when something wasn't right. I didn't defend myself. I just sent her the facts. PDFs of every mortgage statement. Screenshots of every wire transfer. The original loan assumption agreement with my name on the deed. The clause that clearly stated, if not reimbursed in 3 years, full ownership transfers to the signee. I ended the email with one line. They told me not to come home. So, I didn't. I just made it permanent. She didn't reply for a day. Then she sent a message I still read when I need strength. "Emily, you didn't steal anything. You saved that house. And they used you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I see it now. I'm on your side." 2 days later, she posted on Facebook. Not tagging anyone. Not naming names. Just this. The truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to last longer than the lie. And things shifted. Quietly. Slowly. But they shifted. Some relatives messaged me apologies. Others stayed silent. Cowards choosing comfort over clarity. But the smear campaign cracked. Because nothing spreads faster than truth backed with proof. And I didn't need to yell to be heard. I went back to work. Tended to patients. Held hands. Changed IVs. No one at the hospital knew what I'd done, and I liked it that way. Because revenge that demands attention isn't healing. It's ego. But revenge that restores your dignity? That's liberation. One day, a distant cousin, Amanda, called out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken in years. She said, "I don't know what's true, but I do know one thing. People don't turn cold for no reason. Something must have broken you first." I smiled and said,
No.
"They didn't break me. They just showed me the door. So I walked through it and locked it behind me." She was quiet. Then she whispered, "Good for you." That was the moment I knew. I had rewritten the story without ever raising my voice. And the best part? I didn't need revenge. I just needed to leave and let the truth unpack itself. I stopped checking their profiles. Stopped wondering if they were still talking about me. Because I didn't need an audience anymore. I had spent so much of my life trying to be the good daughter, the fixer, the forgiver, the quiet achiever, that I forgot who I was when no one needed saving. So I started saving someone new, myself. I moved apartments, got a place with a big window that overlooked the city, not because I needed the view, but because I deserved the light. I replaced the broken toaster with one that worked. I bought a soft blue couch. I started reading again, fiction, romance, poetry. And I said no more than I ever had in my life. One night, I lit candles just because I wanted the room to smell like vanilla and clean hope. I sat with a journal in my lap and wrote 5 words. You are not their burden. I underlined it twice. That line became the foundation of something bigger. At the hospital, I noticed how many of the young nurses, the ones fresh out of school, scared and overwhelmed, had no one to talk to. So I started a little peer group. Nothing fancy. Just tea, cookies, and a space where we could talk about burnout and boundaries. We called it the Blessing Room, named half as a joke, half as a dare. Because I'd been called a burden. And now I wanted every woman in that room to know we were blessings. We always had been. And then something unexpected happened. A social worker from the housing nonprofit reached out. The one I donated the house to. They wanted to recognize me, publicly. They were organizing a gala, and one of the families I'd helped was giving a speech. I declined at first. I didn't want to stand in a spotlight. But they said, just come. Sit in the back. No pressure.
So I did.
And halfway through the event, the woman who moved into my old house, Danielle, stepped on stage. She was wearing a red dress, holding her daughter's hand. She didn't mention my name, but she said something I'll never forget. There are angels that don't need wings. Just enough pain to understand yours. Someone gave me a home, and in doing so, they gave me proof that kindness can survive betrayal. My hands shook in my lap, because for the first time, someone didn't just take from me. They honored me. Afterward, she found me near the exit. She hugged me, tightly. Her voice cracked when she said, "That house saved us. I hope it gave you peace too." And I said the truth. It did. But not because I gave it away, because I stopped waiting for them to be grateful. I walked home that night under the city lights.
No calls.
No chaos. Just my own footsteps and a heart that no longer begged for permission to matter. At home, I opened a small box I'd kept in the back of my drawer. Inside was a silver necklace I'd bought months ago but never wore. It had one word engraved on it. Blessing. I put it on. And for the first time in my life, it didn't feel like a title I needed to earn. It felt like a name I'd always carried. They just couldn't see it. But I could. And now, so could the world. I used to think closure came in the form of confrontation. A dramatic face-off. A shouted confession.
Tears.
Regret. Redemption. But that's not how real life works. In real life, the people who hurt you rarely apologize. And if you wait for it, you'll stay trapped in the pain they left behind. So I gave myself something better than closure. I gave myself peace. It came quietly like snowfall. No music. No climax. Just a new chapter beginning. On a chilly March morning, I received a plain envelope in my mailbox. No name. No return address. Inside was a photograph. It was the old house, freshly painted, the front porch restored, the garden blooming. There was a little girl in the yard, drawing chalk hearts on the sidewalk. And next to her, a sticky note. Just 2 words written in crayon. Thank you. I stared at that photo for a long time. My hands shook, not with sadness, but something softer. Something that whispered, "You did the right thing." I placed it on my fridge. Not to remind me of what I lost, but of what I gave. And what they never understood. Weeks later, I passed by my old street. My parents had moved into a small rental a few blocks away. I saw my mother once at a grocery store. She looked older, tired. Her cart was nearly empty.
She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and chose not to.
Either way, I didn't say anything. Because what was left to say? She called me a burden. And for a while, I believed her. But the truth is, I wasn't heavy. They were just too weak to carry what I gave. And the cost of their comfort was always my silence. So I stopped being silent, not with shouting, but with action.
And now?
I don't wait for their messages. I don't refresh their pages. I don't listen to stories about how they're doing better or still hurt. Because I'm not part of that story anymore. I live in a different one now. I wear my blessing necklace every day. I light a candle when I come home. I drink coffee from a mug that says self-made. And I laugh, out loud, freely, often. I still work nights at the hospital. But now I mentor new nurses through the blessing room. We talk about boundaries, burnout, worth. And sometimes I tell them a version of this story. A story about a girl who paid for everything and was told she was nothing. And how she replied with a single word, understood. Not because she agreed, but because she was done explaining her value to people who had none themselves. That word became a turning point, a farewell, a promise to never again beg for love in a place built on conditions. And if you're watching this now, maybe you've been called a burden too. Maybe your kindness was mistaken for currency. Maybe your absence was the only way they noticed your presence. If so, let me leave you with this. You are not their regret. You are not their scapegoat. You are not their emotional ATM. You are a blessing. Not because they say it, but because you finally believe it. I never got my apology. I never got my Christmas. But I got something better. Myself. And you know what? That's more than enough.